views and opinions expressed in the following program are those of the hosts and guests, and not necessarily those of the staff and management of WWDB-TV.
Hello and welcome to Good Medicine. I'm Holly Davis and I have a very special guest with me today, Kelly Boyers. I got it. Kelly Boyers. And you're from Adams Place. Tell me about Adams Place.
Well, first, thank you for having me today.
You're so welcome.
Adams Place was founded in 2009, so we just celebrated our 10th anniversary. So we've been in the community doing what we do for a length of time. Adams Place was created, I lost a son in 2007, and I had a younger son that I was concerned on how he would cope with the loss of his only brother. So I took a year to analyze what was evidence-based, what was helpful to children and teens, and there's lots of research that indicates the effectiveness of support group. So I looked for a support group system that was available for children and teens, and there wasn't one established yet. So we were able to get some funds from a 9/11 foundation called Little Hope, whose mission is to start in children's bereavement programs in every metropolitan city in the country. So we took those funds and opened our doors in 2009. In the middle of the recession, in the middle of a city that's already scant on social, emotional support.
Any services?
Yeah.
I'll just say it.
Just say it. And we hit the ground running. Our program is sustainable because we've invested in our training component. So we train volunteers to facilitate the group. So that's what keeps the cost down, and an effective means of providing a first stop for children who may need assistance coping with the loss of a parent, sibling, or other primary or best friend, whatever the entry point is a child. Our program is based off a model out of Portland, Oregon, the first children's bereavement program called the Dougie Center. We're a part of a national alliance for grieving children. We follow their best practices and evidence-based activities. We had a tough time bringing the program into a digestible data gathering system. So we moved from an open-ended program to a program that is 8 sessions over 16 weeks, allowing us to do a pre-group survey with each child, each participant, and a post-group survey with each child and participant. That way we can indicate our value and what the investment is, the return on investment is, while working with the children, because we layered coping skills education with peer support, and it's a great combination because those are things that aren't always conducted at school.
For sure.
And the children walk away with a certificate of accomplishment.
That's great.
We never talk about being healed. We talk about healing. We talk about therapeutic. We talk about ways for them to have their identify their own coping skills and what works best for them, and always having their tool belt on to reach in and grab the tools that they need as they cope with school tests, as they cope with the transition of moving, whatever the next loss or transition or trigger might be for them. We want those coping skills to be on their belt and ready to use.
Holidays, those are tough.
Yep.
You know. Well, I'm going to steal 3 things from you already. For one, I love the tool belt, always having the little tool belt ready. I love the concept. You're never going to be healed. How could you ever be healed from a loss like that, right?
Right.
And I also love group. Group, I believe, is that one place I think that works in therapy better than individual, because in a group, then I'm not the only one on the planet that's gone through this.
Right.
And then it's not up to the facilitator. The group teaches each other.
Yes.
And here's the thing about a group. They'll look in the group and go, well, you know what? maybe I'm not as bad as I thought I was.
Right.
I'm not as bad as that person, or I didn't realize it was this bad.
Mm-hmm.
So you get some ahas that are beautiful, that and awareness, enlightenment, and I think it's beautiful. I really don't think there's enough of these grassroots efforts, and you also have an amazing entrepreneurial spirit. If it's not there, let's do something about it. So I love that. And I was invited to come once to Adam's Place to do yoga from Alan, and I was really glad I got to go. You really have a big group of kids.
Yeah, yeah.
And they're really receptive to yoga too. Yoga, I believe, is such a great healing modality. How many people are coming through there?
So annually, we'll touch about 500 folks. We have about 40 kids and family members that attend the 8 sessions of Camp Cope, but we have other activities throughout the year. We do you just referenced that the holidays can be a trigger. One year we had so many, and this is a sidebar, but we had so many in our littles group, which is our 5 to 8 year olds, large group that year. Well, a lot of them, it was their first year after the death of a parent, and none of them were looking forward to the holiday, and you could just sense it in the air. So we decided that we wanted to do something that would help them create new memories and integrate old memories. So we came up with a concept called Mrs. Claus Tea. So we hold that at Opportunity Village, and the families can come out, and we do an activity, and we're all together. We do a candle lighting. It's just a special moment, and we sing with Mrs. Claus, and Santa comes and makes his thing. And then we all go out into the magical forest. And when you've experienced a disruption in your family, and you don't have that other person to hold the coats, or have another person to track Johnny down as he's running around, it's very helpful to be in a larger group system that can lend a hand. And we have a volunteer that can help take Johnny through the magical forest. So it was a great concept. We went and we did this, and one of our first partners was Junior League of Las Vegas. Had some extra volunteers on hand, but anyway, that we conduct Mrs. Claus Tea, and then the next session we have those littles came in with their chests held high and sat down, and you could see that they realize it's going to be okay. They are going to be able to smile again at the holidays. That it is a forward movement. And we had one young man who would come. His mother put up a tree, and he would come home every day after school and take the ornaments down. Like, that was his way of saying, it's not Christmas because my dad's not here. But after spending some additional time, he made peace, reconciled that there will be more holidays in the future. And so we've learned things from our participants along the way, and we try to be as helpful to the community. We know what we are, and we know what we're not. While we will refer to group being therapeutic, we will never say that it's group therapy, because that would refer to it being conducted by a clinician. We believe that grief is a natural, normal reaction to loss, and the parentheses of those experiences is pretty wide. It's whether it goes on too long or it's too intense, that maybe that individual has some additional work to do individually. And with children, they may do some individual work, but a lot of therapists will refer them back to us because they need the group experience as well. So we were part of one of the spindles on the wheel of children's mental health from a preventative standpoint, because it's not as if coping skills are innate; they have to be learned. And so children need, we as a society, we want everyone to choose healthier coping skills versus less healthy, but often that's modeled, or children learn from those around them. And when there's been a death, the surviving spouse, parent may not be as balanced. So it's a resource to be able to come to our program where there's caring, trained, compassionate folks who have experience on companioning these children through the start of their journey. So I think one of the key things that I've heard from the public over the years is that, kids are resilient. They'll get over that. And when I lost my son, and people would stop me at Walmart and say, isn't this the worst thing that's ever happened to you or the worst death of all? And I'm like, well, it's pretty hard. I'm not going to lie. But I have no way to measure anyone's loss compared to my own. But I'm pretty sure a child who has less coping skills than I do, it's pretty tough when dad dies or mom dies or a brother dies. And that's where I started to have empathy, realizing that there is someone that's hurting on the same level, maybe even more than I as a parent. And that's what's lifted me up a bit by helping someone through a volunteer standpoint.
I was just going to say, I bet that they're really healing for you as well.
Absolutely. Volunteering in and of itself is a healing experience, let alone with participants in this venue. So we have as a guideline that you need to be a year after a loss before you can volunteer with us, because we want to make sure that you're in a position to be as helpful as you can. And if you get into our training, we have ways to kind of measure, through the application process as a volunteer and an orientation and then the training. And maybe it's been longer, maybe it's been 2 or 3 years, but facilitating may not be the right spot for you. That's okay. We have other volunteer positions that we need to fill and other slots. And because we want everyone to be in a position to be as helpful to themselves and for others. And we've learned through looking at other programs. We've traveled the country and looked at different models. Our original training from the Dougie Center. So we are very, we are regimented in regards to our training and the involvement of the volunteer. But what's beautiful about the group process, and get back to you, is that there's 2 sets of ears and 2 sets of eyes. And so within a group context, we always have 2 trained volunteers in our group setting. And that's helpful because it keeps a balance and helps the group stay healthy. And I think there's a little magical sauce in that too. But it is magical when you see when a child walks through the door and says, "Hi, Joey, it's okay, my name's Stella. I lost my dad too. Come sit down." That's something you and I can't do for that child, but that child has done something priceless for the other.
I was thinking about that too, how you said, it's really different how children, experience loss and how adults do. I think children are still so seeing life magically and beautifully and wonderfully, and I'm sure they have so much to teach us. And I love that in the groups that even though you have a lot of evidence-based approaches and you've looked at other models, which I commend you, you've done a great job, and look at the evidence of it. Look how many people are coming through and getting help. So you really did your research and you know what you guys are doing. I love that, but you're still learning from other people, and I really, really appreciate that, respect that, and love it. And I think that children do see through these beautiful eyes that it's nice that you get to experience that as well. Now, when I was there, I did see there's some children too that are really traumatized, and it stops you, it stifles you. You're not talking, you're isolated. And what I also love about what you guys are doing is, yes, counseling I think is beautiful, but doing it in combination with the support groups, because I can do counseling all day long, but I notice isolation for everything that anyone's ever going through, depression, anxiety, addiction, bereavement, isolation is that number one thing that's the go-to in the human spirit. And I love that you guys just won't allow them to go through this alone, or you're offering an opportunity. No one needs to be forced, but if you knew that there are other people out there, there was a resource, and that's what we need to do on Good Medicine. We always have a resource that people can go to in the community. So knowing that you guys have Adam's Place, it's a beautiful resource. So I know that you guys probably need resources. I don't know about volunteers or what you need, but tell me, I know you also have this camp, so tell us how we can help.
So we decided to put some parameters, a start and stop on the length of our program, we decided to call it Camp Cope, because that way folks might be able to understand that camps usually have volunteers and there's skills that are expected to be learned, etc. And so we now have Adams Place Camp Cope, which is the 8 sessions over 16 weeks. That will start on August 26th with a family orientation. And if families want to register, they can go right to our website, adamsplacelv.org, and fill out an application. They'll get an email response back immediately that will give the address and date and time. And it's Monday, August 26th from 4 to 6 p.m. Stop in any time. We believe that children need to see the site, come in for our orientation, see the rooms that they'll be in, so that we can make sure that the family is clear of what we do, what we don't do, what we expect, what is not healthy for a group setting. And so we try our best to tee everything up to be as successful and helpful as possible, and the orientation process is required to do that. Then on the next night, on August 27th, we start group. So that's our first session. And the topic for session 1 is Grief 101, because it's not a topic we talk about. It's kind of, a little bit, from a marketing standpoint, we use the word loss because it's a little easier to say. Grief can feel like a heavy burden, which it can be. It's a part that, we're not trying to shy away from it, but we're trying to get in to help educate others that it's okay to, you will experience emotional pain, and it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to stop and cry, and it's okay to share your human experience. So Grief 101 is next Tuesday night, and every session will have a topic, and while what happens in group stays in group, unless a child or teen makes any kind of reference to self-harm or harm of others. And that's an automatic stop to the parent, dial 911, or call a physician. But aside from that, what happens in groups stays in groups. And a lot of the parents were like, well, what's happening? What are they talking about? So we just
Standing on the doorway, watching. Yes, I know parents.
So we decided to give them a topic, and then we'll review that topic in the adult group and give them some samples of activities that could have been used in their child's group. The facilitators get to choose what activities go with the topic that we have in our manual. But we highly suggest to the family to continue the conversation after group and use some of the activities on their own or create their own model of that activity. One of my favorites, and we'll conclude at the end of groups, is a thumb ball. And that's just a simple plastic ball that you can write questions about the loved one. What was his favorite color? Or what was her favorite song? Or where was I when I found out that they had died? Just questions that help conversation. And then you can throw some other random ones in, but you can have your own family thumb ball that you can take out and use and wherever your thumb lands on the ball is the question that you answer. And as families, as parents, we need skills too. We need ideas, and those are the kinds of things that we try to coach the families on.
That's great. So that mom goes, so what did you talk about today? Right? That's great. I love that you guys are giving coping skills. I love the idea. And I also love the idea of Loss 101. I don't think we know how to do that as a culture, as a society. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a small break. When we come back, we're going to jump right into Loss 101 and how to talk to someone instead of walking up to someone and saying, hey, I'm so sorry, it's the worst loss and the worst thing that could ever. We don't know how to say the right things and do the right things. And a lot of times I've even counseled some clients that are going to, visit people in the hospital or they're talking to a loved one, a friend or family member that's lost someone. Because listen, everyone dies. Everyone knows somebody who's died. We all have been affected by this. So why is it something that we don't talk about, see, hear, or, I just say, just being there. Just caring, just loving. You don't
showing up.
Yeah. You may not have to say anything. Sometimes a hug says a lot, right? So, but we can talk a little better, speak a little better, and be there just a little bit better. So we're going to take a break, and we're going to talk about that when we come back on Good
someone
Medicine.
near and dear to your heart, it's so tough, and it can be even tougher for a young person. Adams Place provides support for those experiencing loss, and coming up, you can help them carry on their mission at the Vintage and Vines event coming up for the 10th year. Here with more on all the details is Lindsay Kutcher, and founder Kelly Thomas Boyers. Good morning, ladies. Great to have you.
Good morning.
Yeah, thanks for showing up in the spirit of the 20s.
We're ready.
Yeah, the roaring. We're ready to roar. We've been connecting about how much we love this era and also about the great work that you do helping children who've experienced loss here in the Valley. Tell me about Adams Place.
Adams Place is a foundation that has been in Las Vegas for 10 years now. We're celebrating our 10th year anniversary, and we help children who have lost someone near and dear to them by providing support groups and facilitating similar age groups in providing coping skills and a safe place for them to go when they're dealing with one of the toughest things in their lives.
Isn't that true? And loss is unfortunately, it's just part of the human experience, but it has a special effect on a child, and that's something that you're very tapped into. Kelly, you actually founded this organization, this nonprofit here in town. Can you tell me a little bit about how it was started?
I can. I lost my son Adam 12 years ago, and he left behind a younger brother, and I was quite concerned on how he would cope with the loss of his only brother. And we searched the Valley to see what resources were available, and very, very few available for children. So we started with a group. We started Adams Place, which is a 501c3, and we've traveled across the country looking at the best models, best practices, evidence-based types of activities that we facilitate through our groups. So we're very good at what we do, and it's been very humbling to be a part of a child's journey, to be their companion. They're learning life skills that they will a lifetime investment. And so as we help these children with their grief, their skills will get better and better over a lifetime, and their continued academic success. We've partnered with schools and
Oh, neat.
Yeah.
How wonderful. I'm really moved to hear about your story. I'm just so touched that you lost your son and that, you know, you were able to turn around and do something so very positive that helps other people. So now the organization has gone beyond really just helping people cope with loss of, like, say, a family member or a parent. And now you help kids experiencing all kinds of losses.
Yes. We're in the schools right now. We brought the groups to the schools so we could took away transportation as a barrier to get access to us.
Excellent.
And so we're working with the school's counselor, but we provide all the activities, the art supplies, the recreational therapy components. And it's been amazing to watch the amount of empathy the children connect. There may be terminal illness, there may be deportation. One child may have someone who's incarcerated. And once they understand their stories, they really understand how important it is to check in with each other. Because we know right now mental health needs to be in the forefront of our conversation.
It certainly does.
Welcome back to Good Medicine. I'm Holly Davis. I'm a counselor here in Las Vegas, and I have a very special guest with me, Kelly Boyers, and she is from Adams Place. And we've got a big girl subject today, something that's pretty hardy and something that should be discussed. Basically, what I was thinking about calling this program is Death as a Teacher. I think it's such a huge topic. It's such a big issue, and most people just walk through their life, you know, I'll deal with it later. I'll deal with it later, and then when it comes up for us, the beauty for me and what I experienced from my own personal experiences was that I realized I'm not the only one that's ever gone down this road.
Yes.
And so wouldn't it be nice to learn from somebody who's gone down that road, and that's what you do at Adams Place, which is beautiful.
Yeah, we were in as a group this spring with at a Lead Middle School, and unfortunately, about 30% of the kids had lost a sibling or a friend through suicide, because that's really an epidemic right now. But one of our group rituals or part of our structure is that you have to introduce yourself and say the name of the person who lost, and that's it. If you choose not to speak the rest of group, that's okay, because we know you're listening. And then when you're ready to talk, that will happen when that happens for you. And there was a young man who had lost his brother, and he had been acting out in school, and that's why he had gotten referred to get into the group. And we could see over time, because we end up validating their stories, just simply acknowledging, from what I hear you saying, it really hurts that you lost your brother. Or your family's changed and you had to move and that was tough. acknowledgement and validation are like magic salves that we kind of, instead of pulling yourself up by your bootstraps, I'm like, no, I need you to acknowledge the pain I'm feeling right now. And then I can move on, I'll take the tiny steps. But to acknowledge my human experience is why we're humans, right? Because we should be able to validate that. So it's been it's been an amazing experience to be able to be a part of that, because kids will look at each other and not understand their stories, and then once they have, that builds empathy, and they know, versus bullying, empathy is the antidote for bullying, because they start understanding their story, and their story has been heard. And I think as adults, we need that too. We just get caught up on, it doesn't matter, or this is just something I have to deal with, and it's like, no, we can step back and share our stories and be heard.
I love that. I have a friend, her son died in her arms, and coincidentally, she took her greatest loss and made it her greatest blessing, and she created trauma recovery yoga.
Oh, yes.
Joyce Boyson, and love you, Joyce. And I love that, and she's in the schools too, and she's taking this pain and she's making it a process that, one, she heals through, and she's continuing to heal through, and then share it with other people as well. But the validation and the understanding is huge for us as a human being. That experience is something that really no one should ever have to go through alone, and to have that continual validation and understanding and education.
Yep, that's the key word. We're all about education, skills, education. Life is a series of losses, really, loss and gains, and when we will be sharpening those skills as we age up. And isn't it better to go ahead and establish those skills to get better, the practice of them better and better? Like it's the practice of yoga, it's the practice of communication skills. We're all in a series of practice, and we tend to do that with sports, but we forget that actually there are a lot of other things that if we have a good base and we continue to practice, we'll have better relationship skills.
Oh, absolutely. I really commend you guys for what you're doing. I think what you're doing is amazing, and I'll come back and teach yoga anytime.
Yay.
We do trauma recovery yoga, of course, and it's micro cueing, and it's helping to bring you back, bring your mind back, and instead of wandering everywhere, and just help you to center and focus on you and that acknowledgement. I think that is a beautiful thing that you're teaching, because we live in a society that is built on, I don't want to feel. And that's why,
Yes.
right? We have the suicides, or 65,000, we're thinking even more. 70,000 people die of overdose on opiates. I don't want to think, or I don't want to feel. And feeling is healing.
Right.
So when we say, yeah, I'm really, how are you today? And we know that you don't just say it to unsafe people, but to really be able to say in a safe place, which Adam's Place provides, not real good today.
Right.
No, I'm not real good. Isn't that okay to be a human with skin on and say, I'm not really doing really well today?
Yep.
And that I just have to just keep going. And one of the mantras that Joyce always used to say was, I've got this. I've got this. And I like that. I think that's a really, really good one. But what about the days when you don't?
Right.
I don't got it.
And if more of us understood that the percentage of us that we don't have it today is much higher than what we understand, we would be better off. And we know there's a correlation with the smartphone in, I think, 2011 with the rate of suicide going up, because people were looking at all these happy things on Facebook and not realizing that there are more that are having unhappy moments, but we're comparing to the wrong, to only a positive.
Oh, yeah.
And we can't make everything, I'm like, yeah, okay, positive. But there are things that are hard, and the things that are not positive, but there's growth through those moments, and there's movement, and there's skills to obtain, and it is a part of the tapestry of your journey in life that makes you a more interesting one, in my opinion, and more to relate to. So
I agree. I think it's my darkest moments and the most painful things that have ever happened in my life have made me the strongest. I know for me, September 1st will be 11 years that my mom died. And I owe her a life that is well lived, because of that experience, it taught me so much that I will drain this life of every ounce until the very last drop.
Me too.
Yeah, you too. Please share your story with me too.
Well, thank you. My son was 21 and was a senior at University of Nevada, Reno. Was a legislative intern and was so happy where he was, where he thought his career was going to be going to, writing actually a bill that was introduced to this in the state legislature. It was like a pinnacle moment where all that hard work in college, you could see where it would go into the future. And I actually went up on a Monday to walk through his office and meet the people that he was just so enthralled with. So I had that chance, had dinner and on that evening, and he was talking about a friend who was driving and drinking, and he said, "Isn't that silly, Mom? And who would do that?" And we talked about actually driving and being safe on the roadways. Well, that was I think I left there on Tuesday, and I got a call from him on Friday saying, "Hey, Mom, the suit I ordered is coming in." And I said, Great. Well, I just flew in for a college visit with my younger son. I said, "Let me call you tomorrow." And we were just starting to track back because there were a few years where, he was finding his own and we weren't communicating as well. But that was all kind of coming back together. And then later that evening is when his car crash occurred, and it was a single vehicle car crash. And the reason why I get into the details of just my circumstances, because it was sudden, was unexpected, very healthy 21-year-old. So healthy, I think that's why he survived his injuries for a week. And but it did teach me that life will change on a dime. And in his memory, I do try to live every day to its fullest, because I have I have the privilege that I'm still here, and I have the honor to live my life for him and in memory of others that I've lost, to be the best human being that I can be and make the best contribution I can. And it's a responsibility, but it's a privilege, and it spurs me because he had a big heart and he had a big reach, and Adam's Place is really kind of captures that, and because he was the big guy for the little guy, and that's kind of what we do. We're for the, I don't mean to say a gender specific because it's gals and girls, but we try to give them a shoulder.
Now, was there drinking and driving involved in the accident?
No, but my son was not wearing a seatbelt at the time, and they swerved to miss someone who ran across the road. So when they swerved to miss the person, the truck rolled, and my son was ejected. So once I heard the word ejected, I knew we were in trouble. And my son had always worn a seatbelt. He had never had a car crash, no tickets from the time he was 16 on. But he was a passenger, and what statistically we look at is that sometimes people get in that passenger seat and think, oh, I don't have to belt up, somehow or if I get in the back seat. We just lost 3 folks who were ejected during a rollover accident where we lost a young woman who has 3 daughters. But when you're in the back seat, you're going to propel out of the vehicle just as with as much force that whether you're in the front or the back. But the driver, who was belted, walked away with a scratch. And what that experience, we got very involved in promoting a primary seatbelt law in the state, because our seatbelt law is secondary, and we believe that if we educate people to say it's not a choice, put your seatbelt on, especially when they come from different cultures or different parts of the world, that we know that wearing a seatbelt is your number 1 defense, and it's part of the things that help govern us. And so for other reasons, the law has not passed here. They've tried to get it through for a number of years. But our neighbor in California, Texas, New York, many other states do have primary seatbelt laws. But that was a part of our journey where we told our story, and it's when I started realizing, wow, there are certain things that are healthier after a death that helps the family kind of find their story, and that one was part of ours.
Right. I don't get my engine turned on until I put the seatbelt on, and those are hard lessons that we have to learn, right? I had a friend who was a news anchor, and he'd been through so many wrecks and everything, and so he would always say, "Yep, I'm not even starting my engine until you put your seatbelt on." And it's the same with my kids. I don't start the engine until, and they know. So if someone gets in our car and they don't put their seatbelts on, they are like, my mom's not going to drive until you put that seatbelt on. I think that's really important too. And it is the little things, isn't it? We know not to drink and drive as too. I know that it wasn't in the accident that you were involved in with your son was involved in, but I think 40,000 people die a year, and those might not even be up-to-date, accurate statistics from drinking and driving. And so there's Lyft.
Right, there's Uber,
There's
whatever.
Uber.
Yeah.
There's a
friend.
There's a
Parent,
a
someone will
driver.
pick you up.
Someone
Yeah.
can pick you up. There's just and so and even with smoking, we know these things.
Yeah.
I went to see Bodies this weekend, and I
The
took my
exhibit.
kids. I took
that's
my kids to go see the Bodies exhibit, and in this town you don't know what you're going to be seeing if I say we're going to go see Bodies, because we live in one heck of a town, right? But it's an amazing town. It really is. The community in this town is amazing. I don't think people really understand that about Las Vegas, and especially like what you guys are doing at Adams Place. People don't know that this town has some grassroots efforts and some amazing people. But I took my kids to that, and my son, he's 7, so he was pretty young, but I felt like it was important
Yeah.
to let him know. Here's my belief system. That we are bodies, physical beings, but we're also, our mind and soul is 90%. And so that's how I live my life, through that lens. And so it's all about heart, it's all about soul, it's all about living. This thing, it's here today and it's gone tomorrow. And every human being, is appointed to a day of death, and no one can escape that. Everyone does. And so it is interesting that, when we went through that, there are some parts where you see embryos, right, of children who were miscarried. And so my kids were really sad, And of course, I wanted them to be sad. Of course, I'm going to be the mom that wants to comfort as well. But I wanted them, my daughter, she was just sitting there, and there was the display, and she just was touching the display, and she was looking. I just watched her. I wanted her to feel the feelings.
Yes, yeah.
I don't want to protect her from that. I want her to know that sad things happen to embryos, newborns, children, adults, 21-year-olds
Rich,
who have
poor,
rich, poor,
whatever
It doesn't
ethnic,
matter. It
no.
doesn't matter where you
Common
come
thread.
from. It's the common thread, and it's the one thing that all of us need to understand that brings us unity too. So if we walk through the planet with that understanding and through that lens, how much different are we going to be to each other?
Right.
How much more compassion
Yeah.
and love? And are you ever going to let your kid leave the door without saying, "I love you"? And when they walk in the door, "I love you." You've got to do, and my friends too, friends, family, even my clients. The first time I see a client when they leave, I'm like, "Hey, I love you. See you next week." And they're always like, "Oh, thank you." After a while, they get the drill. They're like, "I love you too." But I would be remiss if I didn't really share those feelings. And I really feel that way about people since I've had that death experience of my mom dying 11 years ago, that I really truly understand how precious life is, and every day and every breath, and that nothing is promised to any one of us. So if we walked through life with that understanding, how much different would our driving be? Would our accommodations be? Would the telephone calls be? Would the wanting to help and give back, how different would it be than just driving through, just thinking about me? So I've appreciated those experiences, and I want to share that with my children, how important it is. I don't want them to be afraid of death.
Right. And being honest, being open, using age-appropriate language. We say a lot of things that kids have no, they're up in the sky, there's, they're lost. Well, let's go find them. A lot of things aren't concrete enough for them to actually learn. So when they come, for example, to Adam's Place, they're going to start learning a vocabulary. They're going to be able to start putting some words around some feelings that they've never experienced before. But to your point with your children, having them gain some insight over an embryo, to have some empathy, because if they aren't shown empathy and don't give empathy, as an adult, there will be stonewalled. And I think we've all probably had some folks in our lives, whether it be a teacher or a doctor, that had absolutely no empathy factor, and you're just like, what? How can I connect? So I think that children need those opportunities, and oftentimes it could. One of the things that we do in training, we will sit down with our prospective volunteers and say, let's bring a. What's your first memory of a death or a loss? Sometimes it's the fish, the goldfish, and sometimes it's the family dog. May have been a grandparent. But we start bringing them back to remembering what that was like. And oftentimes folks were like, well, I didn't really have anyone to talk to, or I didn't know how to put my words around my feelings. And that we try to bring them into the framework of, well, that's why we are here to do what we do. And let's try to move the needle in this human experience and help one another along the way, and improve the accessibility to education, even on a versus just in an academic, but social and emotional as well.
Well, and I think we are not doing our children any favors by not talking about those kinds of things in school. We don't talk about, I know there's a lot of counselors, but when they get higher education, like middle school and high school, the counselors, well, the counselors are there to help you with your classroom schedule. You know, I mean, I feel like if they felt like they had somebody to talk to, kids would come and, you know, talk your ear off. If you were interested in something they had to say, you know, they're going to talk your head off. You know, if you're interested in me, I'm going to share, you know. So having more opportunities like that for them, for parents out there who are listening, you know, talking about those things. Take your kid on a date. Go take him to see the Bodies exhibit in Las Vegas. Adam's Place. I love this as a resource, and for that camp, they can go to adamsplacelv.org
and fill out a new family registration. We have limited resources, how we've chosen to put our resources in our program. And so we use the internet. We use our website to register, so there's not a body to call. Everything comes through our website. And the way we're helpful is to get you in our door. And so the website, or the response after you register, will give you the date and time and our address, which is at 2820 West Charleston, Suite 40, right in the medical district. And then you'll get the schedule for the rest of the Camp Cope sessions. But we have been doing this for, now we're heading into the 11th year. As you mentioned earlier, we do take every summer to look over both from our facilitators, what activities worked, what they didn't like, what they felt was highly effective, and then feedback from the parents and from the kids. So then we always tweak our model. We always put the pieces of the puzzle together a little more snugly, or a little broader, whatever we're challenged to do. And because it is a learning process, and we learn from all of the experiences. And we're excited this year because our location is a new one for us, and we have a large backyard that we're excited about having some additional yoga. And we have a little more space than we had, so that'll be more comfortable for the families. So we're excited to head into the fall. And we also are in need of volunteers. And on the 13th of September, if you're interested in being a volunteer facilitator, go to our website, fill out a volunteer application, and then we'll get right back to you again about the date of the volunteer training is September 13th from 9 to 4 o'clock. And that's a requirement to be able to join us as a facilitator.
And I want to preface that by saying that everyone out there has something that they can give. Now, if it's been less than a year that you've lost a loved one, then why don't we give it another, give yourself a full year. And I think, I remember Larry Burkett used to say, within the first year of death, it really don't need to do anything. That's not a time to make big decisions or go help and take over the world. Give yourself a year to actually grieve. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Grieve, mourn, cry.
Be kind to yourself.
Be kind to yourself. Have compassion. Here's where I'm feeling today. And then, other than that, if this show has sparked any interest, or is this something that you feel your heartstrings tugging, go ahead and start there on the 13th of September. adamsplacelv.org. Just go online. It's the age of communication, and look it up. If this is interesting to you, do it now. Find out, how can I be of service? And if you know a family that has been struggling or suffered, or even if you don't think they're struggle or suffer and you don't see it, if they've gone through a loss, whether it's recent or not, if there's kids involved, get going back on that website, adamsplacelv.org, and see if maybe they would be, a
could
good
be helpful
candidate.
to them. Yeah.
Yeah, a good candidate for the camp. Another place that I generally will recommend for people is the Center for Compassionate Care. I love that organization too. They have some groups as well for adults. I'm pretty sure they have camps for children too, but it's nice to have multiple resources, but I love Adam's Place, and I was really blessed to get to go and volunteer. We're going to take a small break. We're going to talk a little bit more about grieving, and I'm going to give you some resources. And this program isn't a program to deflate us or make us sad. It's going to be always, I can guarantee you if you're listening or watching Good Medicine, it's going to be a program of hope to give you some answers and to learn from death. If you learn from death, I promise you, you'll have a better understanding of how to live a really beautiful life and how important it is. Yeah. So stay with us. I'm Holly Davis. My guest today is Kelly Boyers, and she is with Adam's Place, so stay with us.
Adam's Place, a center providing support group and education for children, teens, and families coping with grief and loss. There's no time limit on grief. Everyone grieves differently. Children and teens are not as resilient as once believed. Their lives are never the same. Some have to move houses, change schools, give up extracurricular activities, and cope with the grieving systems of everyone else in their household. This is why Adam's Place exists. It provides a safe setting for children and teens to discuss their feelings as they address their grief with others experiencing the same loss. Program night starts with a group meal, and then participants go to their age-appropriate support groups. In these groups, children and teens talk about the people in their life that died. Activities are an important part of expressing their feelings. Art projects and journaling also help address grief. In the upcoming program year, we will be starting a theater play program as another way for children to express their feelings and expanding into the Latino communities. For the new program year, Adam's Place is very excited to be moving into a new facility to better meet the needs of our participants. Volunteers are the heart and soul of Adam's Place. Each group has 2 trained facilitators that help participants share their stories. All the volunteer facilitators have donated their time for training and continue to participate in additional training programs. If you would like to join Adam's Place, either as a volunteer, participant, or donor, please visit our website, adamsplaceforgrieflasvegas.org.
Hi, my name is Kelly Thomas Boyers. As board president of Adam's Place, it's my privilege to say thank you to our many community donors, partners, friends of Adam's Place. Adam's Place has helped over 250 children, teens, adult, and family members cope with loss and grief. Thank you again from all of us at Adam's Place for your continued support.
Hi, I'm Holly Davis. This is Good Medicine. Kelly Boyers with Adam's Place is my guest today, and we have been talking about your nonprofit organization, and it is a place, it's a grief center for children and families, so they need your help with support, volunteers, donation, grassroots effort, volunteer, so you can go to adamsplacelv.org. Thank you for being my guest. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having us. We appreciate the good medicine you're sharing.
Oh, thank you. And I want to give a couple more little antidotes of good medicine. One, I've got to leave with a really good quote and a song. But I also have a book, and it was Tuesdays with Maury. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've read that, have you? Please read it. It's such a great book. It's a beautiful life story. And there's a couple of books, too, or actually movies. I love The Secret Life of Bees. Are there movies that touch your heart that you watch that are really good for you that you would want to recommend?
I'm actually going to give you a list of books and resources that we share with families and parents that might be helpful to your listeners.
Oh, thank you so much. And then I have a quote, and it says, I hope there are days when your coffee tastes like magic, and for kids, cocoa or water. Okay, water. Your playlist makes you dance, strangers make you smile, and the night touches your soul. And I hope you fall in love with being alive again. And I hope that this program has given people out there who are going through loss, just like everything in life, there's loss and there's gain, that you can learn from it and it makes you a better person, and that you see how special life is. We're going to continue to talk about this next Tuesday at 11 a.m. Pacific time on Good Medicine. I'm Holly Davis. Kelly Boyer is my guest today. Thank you guys so much for watching.
Thank you.
There is freedom within, there is freedom without. Try to catch the deluge in a paper cup. There's a battle ahead, many battles are lost, but you never reach the end of the road while you're traveling with me.